So we all have things inside of us that we feel really drawn to do. We all have beliefs that sometimes are very, very deep down and covered up by a lot of doubt, but we have positive beliefs about ourselves that like, I'm meant to do something in this world, or I'm here for a reason. And as long as you just don't give up and you keep trying to do that, you're going to crack through all these layers of darkness that allow your internal light to really shine through.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and today I have with me the lovely Maayan Gordon. Maayan, he's a community building expert. She specializes in helping entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and businesses create thriving online communities that drive engagement, loyalty, and revenue. With 14 plus years of experience generating millions in revenue and connecting with audiences across platforms, Maayan cracked the code on how to turn followers into loyal customers. Of course, we talked about building communities, leadership, and growth mindset. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Maayan. Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Also, I have to say, your studio background looks really, really cool. I love it.
I know. You know what? I've been struggling with the green screen and nothing looks really great. I mean, I wish I had this like beautiful studio, but I'm not there yet. So this is it for now. Virtual background.
It looks great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we begin, maybe you can share your core story and how you discovered your passion.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short because that's right, like a very, very long journey. But I would say the core elements of, my story are that I grew up, feeling very different. I think like a lot of people when they're kids feel like they don't fit in. And that was certainly the case for me. And, I was always really good at school and academic work, but it wasn't something I was super passionate about. And so I just kind of followed the normal path and, tried to get good grades and then went to college because that's what like everyone at my high school did. It's what my parents wanted. And then I got to college and I was really, really bored and a little bit miserable. And at the same time was finally on my own for the first time. So I had all of this new freedom to really, think differently and explore. And in, some of my exploration, I found a career path that was never presented to me, which is copywriting. And so all of a sudden I was, making like $20, $30 an hour writing, descriptions for people's, Amazon or Shopify products or writing emails, things that I thought like were very basic in that like, I never imagined someone would pay for me to write their email, right? It was like a novel concept. And so, I decided to pursue that. I ended up dropping out of college after 3 semesters, started, I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. Needless to say, my parents were not happy with any of these decisions. And they freaked out for a little bit. And did that for a while before I got tired of kind of chasing new work and new gigs in the freelance, kind of framework. And so I decided to start a business because I felt like then all of the work I was doing was going to build the business. And like, I wasn't wasting time messaging people for, 3 hours, or I think a lot of people can relate to this now, like applying for a lot of jobs that I never got. And that time just felt so like wasted and not productive. And, at least in a business, all of the time I went working on it, even if I didn't make money directly from that work, it was going to build something bigger and that was more valuable. So I ended up, starting my first company actually when I was down in California. Me and my husband used the library at the college that I dropped out of to go in every day, do a bunch of research. We came up with a product idea, which was a smoking accessory, and we wholesaled it to like smoke shops all across the US. And, that business did very well. I started to really use Instagram and social media, Facebook, for, business purposes, and, did that with 3 different companies over the course of really the first 10 years of me being in business. Didn't have a ton of like other business foundation. I had no education on business fundamentals, so had no idea what I was doing from a financial perspective. We tried hiring in a couple of the businesses, and it, had some success, but like a ton of failure. And I made, a huge number of mistakes. And then fast forward to 2019, I really kind of pivoted from just being on Instagram and Facebook to TikTok and LinkedIn. TikTok exploded for me very, very quickly. And I just really became fascinated with AI at that point, because it was very clear that TikTok had a totally different algorithm than the other social media platforms. So, I was really learning a lot from TikTok, and at the same time, for the first time in my life, had access to this whole world of entrepreneurship through LinkedIn, and started building all of these relationships and having all of these conversations with other, highly successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, COOs, people just in all sorts of different roles. And that's also when I got my first business coach and really started to develop my skill set as an entrepreneur in a very intentional way. 2020 is when I started my marketing company, and I've gone through really like a series of pivots and evolutions since then. I started out with coaching, moved into consulting, and then that kind of led me to where I am now, where I do community building. So I help build online communities, and also doing personal brand development, because usually those two things support each other and go hand in hand. And for me, community building is really a combination of the strategy side that I was doing in consulting with the implementation side that I learned from operating a lot of different businesses and creating systems and processes. And then again, the kind of branding side as to how you're bringing people into the community.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that you had the guts to leave your school and just go for it. It's kind of like what my husband did, where he kind of like stepped in the middle, and now he's a very successful entrepreneur.
It was a little less guts, more I had like almost a emotional mental breakdown. and, like it was finals time in my third semester, and I was taking 5 very hard classes, even though like a full workload in the US is 3 classes. And I didn't enjoy any of them, and I knew that I didn't know the material well enough to get like straight A's on all of them. And my entire goal of being in college was to be a veterinarian, which is veterinary school is extremely hard to get into, partially because there's just very few vet schools in the United States. And it's very, very competitive. And so I was like, why am I doing all of this? I'm not even going to get in. I was just like hysterically crying each day. And if it weren't for my husband, I don't know that I would have dropped out. He said, anything that makes you feel this way and is like this upsetting is not the right choice for you. And I went, that's relatively logical, but like, then what? So I took that leap because really the other option felt kind of unbearable.
Right. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a singer, and then I wanted to be a veterinarian. But when I understood that being a veterinarian includes blood and all that, and cutting and all that, I changed to zoologist.
Oh, that's so funny, because it was actually one of the things that helped me realize also that like veterinary was not a good path for me. Was I took a zoology course in college where we had to like dissect, worms.
Oh, I thought that you don't have to dissect in zoology, that you just watch animals. Ooh, okay.
I don't know. I'm just saying that the course that I took that was labeled zoology, because I think we were learning about, right, like there's all the different like phyla and classes and like genuses. And so it was on our test, we had to dissect to be able to identify like, the different classes and stuff of the animal. And same, I was, it was very upsetting to me to have to cut into even something that was like dead, but used to be alive.
Yeah. How do you combine branding and community building? What's the connection there?
Yeah. So, when it comes to community building, there's the experience people have inside the community. And then there's the question, how do you get people to find out and join the community? And so, personal branding or branding in general, it doesn't have to be personal branding, but branding in general kind of solves the attraction problem in getting people in and bridges the gap into what the experience inside the community is. So, when a community is talking about who the community is for and what the purpose and mission of the community is, I would say those are two of the centralized components of branding. And that messaging not only can attract people in, but then once they've joined and signed up, now they have some set of like expectations around, okay, I know why I'm here. And I know the other types of people that are going to be a part of this community. They're going to have these shared, visions, goals, or, purposes that are the same reason that I joined the community.
Right. I'm doing rebranding right now for my website, and it's going to look completely different. It's very bold. It's going to look awesome, but very different than other websites. And I feel like, and a lot of personal photos of mine, like tons of them, like it is like, I am the brand, da, da, da. And when it's like that because I was working with a coach who told me, a branding coach who told me, you want to go really big on your website so people will see you at your best. And then when you meet them, you don't have to prove so much. They already know who you can be. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think, we form opinions about people based on what we see online a lot of the times, right? Like there's the whole, first impressions idea, right? Like a first impression is a very big deal. It kind of cements how we think about a person or an experience or a place. And a lot of times people's first impressions of other people are going to be online in some way, right? Whether that's through social media, whether that's through a website. And so, that experience or that exposure for us creates a foundation and a framework of who we, think someone is, how we feel about them. And then everything else starts to fit into that framework or, support that framework. Because we all have like one of the biggest, we have, I don't know, it's like 30 something different biases that like the human brain has. And one of them is confirmation bias. So whatever I believe initially, my brain will try and find other pieces of evidence to support that belief. So if you can get someone to, when they first see you and interact with you, even if it's through a website, to feel like, wow, this person's amazing, then when you talk to them in person or meet them in person, that's the framework they're starting from. And their brain is looking for more evidence to support that belief.
Good. I'm just thinking with branding, how do you know you're making the right choice? Like, how do you I feel like I did my best. It's going to launch soon. But how do I know that this was the right path or should have been? Because this is, for example, in my old website, which is quite old now, it's more formal. And now the photos are more wild. Like I did some photo shoot in Costa Rica and it's different. It's very different. It's not for everyone, but it's like, it feels like a gamble.
Yeah. So, I think you're bringing up a really good point and like something that's super, super common, which is like anytime we do something new, there's going to be fear involved because the fact is we don't know like 100% sure on anything that's going to happen in the future. Right. And there's no way to have a 100%, I know this is the right decision on almost anything. That being said, getting feedback is a really great way to be able to know if something's the right decision for you. And so, I would suggest like both to you and anyone else who's going through a rebranding process is, before 100% publicly saying this is the new brand, you get like feedback from not just, random people, but the people that you're trying to connect with, right? So, and this also goes back to like, an important part of branding is having a particular goal. Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve with your brand, right? Is there a particular person you're trying to attract? Is there a particular response you're trying to elicit? And then you find a group of those people and you get their genuine feedback. And if you think about any really large company, right, they'll spend a lot of money on focus groups to do this same thing before, coming out with like, for example, I don't know if this is something like in Israel, but in the US, Walmart just rebranded.
Really? Oh, I didn't see that.
It's very like all they did was make their logo a little bit brighter. It's like one of those rebrands that's like they barely changed anything. But I'm certain that they spent a lot of money, first testing out different ideas on focus groups and seeing what people responded to. And not just random people, but people in their target market that they're trying to connect with and attract. So I'd say that's a really good way to not only, see if you're making the right choice, but it also makes you feel way more confident in launching your brand. If you've gotten feedback from 10 different people and they're all like, this is freaking awesome, you're like, oh yeah, maybe it is awesome.
Yeah, maybe. Too late for me though. It's gonna happen anyways. Too late. So, guys, like my new website, please. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is, though, a pretty website is nice, but the community building, like for somebody who's, because I built communities in the past and then I kind of dropped it. If I'm starting now from scratch, how do I build a very large community quickly and effectively?
Okay, well, you used two words there that may or may not be possible for me. So the quickly part.
Slowly and effectively.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Very slow and very effective.
Yeah, I think you can be very effective without needing speed, right? And so obviously it's going to depend on what we'll call them assets you already have. So someone with a huge engaged following can build a community much more quickly than, like, if you're not even posting on social media and you want to go straight to community, that's going to be a lot harder, right? Because people don't really know who you are. You can, do a lot of stuff in person. Let's say you have in-person community. You can harness that too. But if like you don't have a lot of relationships and a lot of people don't know you, then who are you going to build the community with, right? And just the way social media works is if you're starting out, a lot of the time you're not going to get, your content's not going to get shown to a lot of different people. So I would say, but where everyone should start, whether they do have a large audience or they have a small audience, is with defining what is the mission and purpose of that community. Like, why are people joining? What are they trying to achieve? What is the community helping them to accomplish? Once you have that, then you map out, okay, so based on this mission, who is this really for? And you can start with the who it's for first to help inform kind of the mission, but the mission's going to give you a lot of details as to, getting more granular with who really is going to be attracted to this community and get value from it, really experience that value. Once you have those two things, then you can go into structuring the community. So if this is the goal that they have, and it's for these types of people who value these different things, what does that mean I need to provide as a community? Is it content and information, right? Do I need to be teaching them something? Do they need support, right? Maybe they just need a safe place to be able to communicate. Do they need interaction with each other? What are the things that they need to be able to accomplish this goal and this mission? Then you build those elements, right? So let's say you decide that your community is, you're building I'll come up with an example. You're building a community for software developers, right? And you decide the thing that they need, training and information to be able to do it, but they also need support from their peers to feel encouraged while they're learning and doing it. So you're going to structure, so that means that the elements you need to create a course, and you need to create, let's say, maybe Zoom meetings where people are, sharing their progress and their challenges and supporting each other. And that's what you're going to launch the community with. So you build the community initial elements, those core elements, and then you go into, well, I would say, so this is where people have a hard time, is they'll just announce it. You should always have build up to launching a community. You don't want to all of a sudden just surprise people and say, hey, I have this community, and people have never heard of it. They don't know what it is. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know who it's for. So actually, while you're going through the process of saying, here's what my community is, going to accomplish for this type of people, start talking about that online, right? Start talking about it to people in person that say, hey, I'm building a community and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be for software developers, and it's going to solve this problem that I know that they experience. Then people are like, oh, that's really cool. I can't wait to see what this is going to be like. And so you want to have a build up period where you're talking about the community and, building anticipation and excitement and starting to connect with some of those people who might be members. Then you want to do your launch. And during launch, you probably want to have different types of incentives or promotions. You could have a founding member discount that's a limited time or for a limited number of people. You could have a bonus offer that's only available for a certain amount of time. So different example, let's say you're doing a community that is, basically a coaching community where you're teaching people how to improve their LinkedIn, right? It's like teaching people how there's lots of LinkedIn coaches that have, coaching groups. So let's say you're doing this community around here's how you get better at doing LinkedIn. Well, the first, let's say 30 people that sign up, in addition to all the normal things they get in the community, the content and the Zoom calls, they also get a one-on-one hour with you where you're personally going through their LinkedIn profile and content and helping them optimize. So that could be an example of a limited bonus offer. And then, once you've done that, if you've got members, all you have to do is run the community, make sure people are engaged and grow it. So, very simple.
Yeah, very simple. What was your process? Because you built a huge community. How did you do it? What are some things that you will never do in the process?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. Things I would never do. I don't have an answer off the top of my head for that. So I could tell you, what I did is maybe not the best way to do it, which is I started with a paid community instead of building a free community first. And really, I started a free community and paid community at the same time. I think it is, to your point, better to go slow and effective and have really centered focus. I think the more focused you can be, the more effective you can be at any area. And, this is partly just my personality is I like to do lots of things at once. And there's benefit to that. And then there's certainly, downside to that. And so I launched my free community, got, 10 people into it quickly so that I could really get feedback and start to learn what was working and not working. And at the same time, I launched communities, with other people. So my kind of core business is, doing the strategy and setup and helping to launch communities for other people. And so I had, different areas where I was able to test and learn from. And for me, that's really the process I like to use. It's all about having a hypothesis or having a theory, setting up an experiment, so to speak, or setting up, something to test that hypothesis, getting feedback, collecting data, and then iterating and, tweaking something and trying again. So I think that's a really good way to, be able to learn in terms of, trying to hit a home run and have the community be super, super successful off the bat. I think the more time you can put into the planning and preparation, the better. So if you think about a book launch, right? So if you want to launch a book and have it be very successful, the people who are getting on, Wall Street Journal bestseller list, they're doing months and months and months of preparation, right? It's why if you go with a traditional publisher, the book's not coming out for 2 years, right? It takes a very, very long time because they're doing a ton of stuff behind the scenes to set up, deals and different partnerships and distribution and promotion. So same thing with a community. If you want it when you first launch it to go really, really crazy well, you're going to have to spend more time up front, planning and structuring how you're going to accomplish that.
How do you contact people and make deals and promotions and my weakness is actually asking people to hey, let's work together, or hey, let's do this together. I'm kind of interested in I don't seem like I'm shy, but I'm kind of shy when it comes to asking people.
Yeah, so my kind of formula. So first thing I'll say is LinkedIn, this, it's my favorite platform. I find the easiest to connect with people and get on a call with them. So the way you ask is not in person because we're virtual, but is face to face. You want to ask someone to their face, not through a screen. It's going to be much, much more effective. So the first step is getting someone on a call and doing it through the context of, hey, I have no specific agenda. I want to get to know you better. And that has to be relatively genuine. So you can have two dynamics at the same time. You can have goals where you want to form partnerships, right? And you want to do strategic deals. You can also want to get to know people and build relationships. Those two things can both be true. And if you start in the framework of, I want to get to know you, and we'll see if it goes towards my second goal, but like, if all that happens is I form a new friendship or I learn about you and I see a way maybe I can help you, that's amazing too. That's going to be a win for me. So you start with that framework, you get on a call with someone, and I would say the, elements that help you lead up to the asking part where it doesn't feel so scary or like icky for a lot of people is just be genuinely curious about the person. If you are genuinely curious about someone else, they will be curious about you. And then you don't actually so much a lot of times have to ask, they'll ask you. So if I'm just like, mesmerized by someone, like, wow, tell me more about this thing. That is so cool. Like good questions that can help spark our curiosity would be ask about someone's like journey. Like, how did they get into what they were doing? Like, what made them interested in it? That's usually a pretty cool story. Just keep asking little questions about different details, like stay in that framework of curiosity. At some point, they'll be like, enough about me. Let me ask about you. You tell me what you're doing and why you're passionate about it. And if you then just go, wow, awesome. Like, I am really passionate. You get into that framework of instead of trying to sell or convince anyone, you're just like genuinely sharing. Here's what I love about what I'm doing, or here's what I've struggled with. I love this part, but man, it's been really hard to figure out this component. And you say that in a genuine way, people will then go, oh, I can help with that. Or tell me, that makes sense. How could I help you? And then you're not asking, you're just, communicating to people the things that you need without that feeling of like, I want something from them. How do I get it from them?
That makes sense. And still, I still find, but that's some inner work that I need to do with myself. Because I'm usually really am curious about other people when it comes to talking about myself and my goals. I kind of, but that's like a different coaching, I think.
Here's the other thing that helps me, because you might not believe this, but I used to be incredibly shy, terrified of people, like really. Like, I would get panic attacks before Zoom calls when Zoom first started, because I didn't know, like, who's this person? What are they going to think about me? What do I say? Who am I? Right? Like, all of the things. And what really helped was just a massive amount of practice. So I just got on a ton of Zoom calls, and over time, like, if you have to talk about yourself over and over again, and then you start getting positive feedback on certain parts, right? Like, maybe, like, honestly, in the beginning, sometimes I'd have Zoom calls and I'd go like, that didn't go well. That felt like I did a terrible job. But every now and again, it'd start out and I'd be like, wow, that went super well. That person like really enjoyed speaking with me and thought I was really interesting and had really nice things to say. And I would sit and reflect on that. I'd go, what is it that I did this time that made them like me so much? And so I think part of getting better is always like reflecting on, how something went. And so, in terms of if it goes bad, I actually tried not to reflect because I would just make things worse in my head. I'd go, that's fine. We're just going to try again. We're not really going to think about what happened. I'm just going to try again. But when it went right, I'd go, I did something this time that they really responded to. What was it? And you start to notice, oh, when I told this story, they really like that story. Or, oh, when I said this phrase, I saw their face light up, right? Like, that's part of why doing it through Zoom, where you can see someone else's face, is really important. Is our faces communicate so much when we're paying attention to other people. And so if you can just think back, or right, like, or if you record it, you can like do game tapes, like in the analogy of like, sports, a sports team will watch their game that they played to see like where they could improve, or like, when they did something well. You can do the same thing. You're like, that meeting felt amazing. I'm going to flag it and watch it later and try and just notice, like, did I do anything that elicited this like good response? And then in the next meeting, you can try and like remember and be intentional about that. But I will say it took me a lot of practice. It wasn't something that happened even with a lot of practice in a month or two. It took like a year of doing a lot of Zoom calls in this kind of format of like really wanting to get better and reflecting before I saw a dramatic transformation. Obviously, there were little steps in between. It wasn't just like one day I felt I sucked and the next day I felt amazing. It was like all the little steps in between, but it takes time.
Yeah, and I like your focus because you weren't focusing on what didn't work. You're like, okay, this didn't work. Let's just seal that. And when something works, you're really focusing on that. You focus on success. You're like that's because then all the energy is going to go towards success, and that's where you are now, which is beautiful. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Boy, I think, to be honest, I don't I'm aware that I have no idea what my life is going to look like in 5 years from now. I'm in the process of having my first child. I have no idea what that's going to do to my life. I would ask the question too, could you have imagined your life, 5 years ago? You've got a beautiful, 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
So that's an unknown factor. I couldn't predict. Also, I'm, moving from the United States to Israel. So I can conjure up some type of, guess about what my future is going to look like. But if I had to pick some elements, I would say that I'm spending a lot more time with family. That's part of what the move is about. I have the most number of relatives all live in Israel. So just spending more time with family, being a lot better of a leader, which, I think it means a lot of different things.
What does it mean to you being better as a leader? Because the way I see you, you're such a bright light and very genuine, which is super refreshing. It just come through in your body language, in your voice, everything. So what kind of a leader you want to become that you're not yet today, or more of what you are today?
Yeah, I think it's, I've worked on myself for a very long time, and very intentionally. And so I feel relatively well-rounded, but I think in any trait or any area, we can always grow and progress and get better. So, areas that are really important to me in leadership that I want to continue to be better at, one is just how reliable I am, right? And I think if we're all really honest with ourselves, do we 100% of the time do the thing that we said we're going to do when we said we're going to do it? If I'm honest, no, maybe I'm at 80% or 70%. So getting, even 1%, 2% closer to saying, if I say something, 100% people can rely that it is going to happen at the time I said, to the degree I said. And then there's outperforming that, right? They're saying, I'm going to do this, and being able to go above and beyond it, would be the next step after you get, almost perfect at it. So reliability is one. And I would say that's similar but different to accountability. Accountability is more about how I'm holding myself accountable and less about are other people relying on me. And so that can come down even to thought process, right? And being, more in control of what are the thoughts I'm allowing myself to have, and not from and this is also partially a very Jewish concept. We can't help if a thought pops in our head, but we can then decide, do we keep thinking about that thought, or do we shift our focus to something new? And certainly, again, if I'm honest with myself, I spend, who knows how much time thinking about things that aren't, meaningful or, bringing me or other people significant value. So working on, just being able to improve the, percentage of my thoughts that are meaningful and focused. And that's really, really hard because a lot of times that means thinking in the service of other people instead of just thinking in the service of myself. So if I really only care about how I feel, then I'm going to think all sorts of thoughts that really are just to entertain me, right? That make me laugh or giggle. I'm going to be more likely to open up my TikTok and scroll through and just watch some videos that make me feel good. But if I'm controlling my thoughts to be more focused on other people and what they need, then I'm much more likely to say, you know what? Because I'm thinking this, I'm going to take this action. Instead of, going on my TikTok, I'm going to call a friend and check in on them and see how they're doing. And we don't always feel like doing that. I don't always feel like, being the person to support someone else. But that's also the person that I want to become more of. And that's hard, and it takes practice, and it takes, doing it to be able to shift, how you feel and how you think. So the person I am now might be a more selfish person than the person I want to become. So I would say also leadership for me is about becoming, less selfish or self-centric, because the word selfish can have a lot of negative emotions for a lot of people, but like less self-centric and focused on myself and more focused on other people, because the truth is I have everything I need. I am incredible. I have my health, right? Even if I didn't have my health, I could still feel like I had everything I need, right? Like there are other people who need things more than I need things. And having that framework and that mindset, one, it feels good. It feels better than feeling like I need stuff.
It feels good listening to you.
Thank you. Because I used to be in that mindset. Again, growing up, I really struggled. I was like very lonely. I had trouble making friends. I felt like things were super unfair. In my life, like my parents are vegetarian, and I was like, it's not fair. I'm not allowed to eat meat. Meat is so delicious. All the other kids get to do it. So all sorts of things like it's not fair. I'm Jewish. I can't watch TV on Saturdays, and all the other kids have cable and get to watch like Nickelodeon. And that felt terrible. That wasn't fun. Like it wasn't an enjoyable way to be living. And even if objectively something's going bad in my life now, if I can sit in that framework of like, I'm so lucky. Like, yeah, our tire just blew out on the highway, but I'm so lucky we have like insurance that's gonna come pick us up and tow us. Like back in the day, I would have had to sit here until some other stranger drove by and like was willing to help me. Like, how cool is it? How lucky am I? That just feels much better.
I love it. So it seems like you worked on your mindset a lot. Like, who are some of your greatest mentors or even books that guided you on this journey, still guiding you on this journey?
That's a great question. I certainly did not do it alone. I had a lot of help. So, I would say a major person who really, really helped me, his name's Jesse Johnson. He was the first person to coach me not only in business, but on a lot of these things like mindset, just how I thought about different scenarios. So, and he was just incredibly kind and generous with his time and just has like one of the biggest hearts of anyone that I've ever met. But also, like you said, a lot of books. So one book, probably the first personal development book that I read was Grit by Angela Duckworth. And it exposed me to this idea of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And if anyone's struggling with, with their mindset, I highly recommend the book, because just this concept changed my ability on how to think. Because I used to believe how you thought was how you thought, and that was a permanent thing, right? It was part of you, and it was unchangeable. And then this concept of growth mindset, which is really that however you think, it can evolve and it can change based on, what information you expose yourself to, based on like, if you believe something can change, it can change. It's this like crazy, concept that we see, for example, in sports all the time, right? Like with like Olympic athletes that like they're the least talented and they don't have any advantages, but they believe that they can be the champion, and they go through this amazing journey and they like, win gold, or they accomplish these like incredible, impossible things. Like human beings have always done things that literally used to be believed were impossible. So how does that happen? Is because we believe we can. And when we believe we can, we all of a sudden can do things we couldn't do before. So that was, a huge book. In terms of podcasts, two that really, really helped me early on was the MF CEO Project by Andy Frisella. And he's an entrepreneur that built a hugely successful company in the supplements space. And he basically, through that podcast shared his journey and like his mindset at different times and how it changed, and just like all the different parts of his journey. And listening to someone else's journey and what they went through, one, it made me feel more comfortable with my journey, because I realized, oh, even someone who's really, really successful struggled with the same things I'm struggling with. So maybe that means I can overcome these challenges and become successful too. But then he also shared new concepts and ideas that I hadn't, wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And so, one of the things he shared that I really resonated with was the concept of approaching business from making friends. And instead of trying to get customers, really focusing on like being a good friend to other people. Because if you're a good friend to someone, again, not everyone, but much more likely they'll be a good friend back to you. What does that mean? It means that you support each other, right? And so if you're willing to help someone, not to get something out of them, because that wouldn't really be a good friend. If I'm only helping you because I want something from you, that's not really how I would define friendship. But if I'm helping you because I really care about you, then you're going to support me too most of the time. And a lot of the times that looks like, a sale or a referral, or, sometimes what we need is not another client. We need an advocate. We need someone to go champion our business and tell everyone, the whole world, how amazing we are. And that can be a lot better than just a single customer a lot of the time. So, just getting all these different ideas about how he was able to go from zero and like totally broke and not making any money and build a business from scratch to something that was really large, really, gave me a lot of tools and information. And again, like confidence. I think confidence is so, so important in anything that any of us do, but especially in entrepreneurship, because there's more failure than there is success in entrepreneurship. And that maybe that's true in everything, but I can only speak from my experiences, which are really centered around, business. You're going to fail more times than you succeed, which is partially why don't focus so much on the failures, because then you're going to get stuck in negativity. But also recognize that that's okay. And it's not a bad thing to have failures. It's a normal part of the process that helps us to learn and evolve.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. Really awesome. And I really love how you share, you're very hard-driven entrepreneur leader, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. And before we say goodbye for now, I have two questions. The first one is, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life? And the second one is, where can people find you?
Okay, man, three top tips. I love the word you chose, stellar. That's not a common choice of words. That's really, really fun. So I'm gonna take that, because like, what does it mean to live? I think when people say a great life, so I like that you use stellar, because I'm gonna focus on what makes your life brilliant or like shine, kind of like a star. And
yes,
I would say tip number 1 is just to never give up. More than even trying to achieve something, if you just refuse to quit and to give up, and when I say quit, on yourself. So we all have things inside of us that we feel really drawn to do. We all have beliefs that sometimes are very, very deep down and covered up by a lot of doubt, but we have positive beliefs about ourselves that like, I'm meant to do something in this world, or I'm here for a reason. And as long as you just don't give up and you keep trying to do that, you're going to crack through all these layers of darkness that allow your internal light to really shine through. You don't have to, the one message I would have for you, you don't have to become something special. You already are something special. You are a unique, brilliant, amazing light that was created. And it's really just about uncovering the things that are in the way so that you can see that and other people can see that. So tip number 1 would be, don't give up on yourself. Tip number 2, let's go something maybe a little bit more practical, would be, find a partner, whether that's your life partner, right? Like, so for me, there's no way I would have been able to do this journey without my husband's support. And sometimes the support didn't look like, the typical way you think about support in terms of encouragement. Sometimes the support was getting feedback that I was really messing up. So like with my husband, sometimes the feedback or support that I was getting didn't feel like encouragement. It actually felt like I was, doing something that I was hurting him. So I was, using sarcasm to like not feel so stressed, and it would make like hurt his feelings. And I realized, okay, well, I need to like change how I'm thinking about things in my attitude so that I'm not hurting this person that I care about, because that's really, really important to me. And that, helped me in my business, right? Like, so I think if we have relationships that we feel really supported in and have someone that we feel really cares about us, and we really care about them, that propels us in all areas of life. And then like practical things of, if I was having a really hard time because let's say I had a meeting and it felt like it went terrible and I like couldn't get out of my head. And all I could do is think about how much I suck or like how awful it feels to try and get better at doing things. And I just felt like I couldn't, get out of that mindset or that feeling myself. I could go talk to him and say, hey, honey, I'm really like upset and I don't know how to feel better about like this meeting I had. I felt like it went so bad and I'm never going to get good at doing meetings with people and no one's ever going to like me. And he could say nice things to me, right? That make me feel better or at least take my mind off of it.
So we got, don't give up on yourself, find a partner. What's the third one?
Third one I would say is always be learning.
Always be learning. Love it.
Yeah. Read podcasts, go to, lectures, whatever format you like to learn, but just always be learning new things.
Amazing. And where can people find you and learn from you and join your community?
Amazing. So my website is maayangordon.com. And you can see my name, Maayan. It's very tricky, Gordon.com. But also connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's my favorite platform. And my website links to my community, so you can find it there as well.
Amazing. Maayan, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. It was a pleasure getting to know you and learning from you. Thank you so much and good luck with your move.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, listeners. Remember to refuse to give up on yourself and keep trying. Find a partner and always be learning. This is Orion. Till next time.